Hello, welcome to the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and today we are very excited to have with us special guest Jody Blum. Jody is from the Co-llective Social Impact Agency, and Jody, we're so excited to have you with us and share all of the great insight you've developed over years. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
I know we want to dive into the substance of the work you've done and how many people you've helped through that work. But I want to take you back to when you were a young girl and get your impression and what created your energy and excitement about sports. What's your first memory in that area?
Well, growing up in South Florida, but my dad was a raging Eagles fan. My mom is a hardcore Yankees fan, so I think just sports was just naturally an excitement in our house. And just loved really all aspects of it, and really how much off the field I saw at an early age it can transform not only the individual, but the fan base around them.
So, that element of bringing people together sounds like that formed the basis. So you had two parents that were both sports fans. And what about you? What sport did you gravitate to?
Kind of going back to what I said, growing up in South Florida, not to date myself, but back in the day, we had like the top three college football teams. So UF, and Florida State. So it was always a huge rivalry and just really, really like exciting, just magnetic energy that if you live here, you're just a part of the culture.
Yeah, and it seems like you've got a good start on the year with Miami being strong this season. So that's an exciting year. And as you followed sports growing up, what made you think that was an area that you wanted to work in?
I didn't really, to be honest, know that that's where I was going to fall into and just have a huge alignment with. I was always drawn to it and the entertainment aspect of it, but honestly, early on, that wasn't my goal to work in sports. I thought I was going to actually run a bed and breakfast.
Well, not too late. There's a
retirement plans. Yeah.
So when did that first become a direction that you considered?
Early on in my career, in starting in philanthropy, I worked for an NFL Hall of Famer and his large foundation. And that really kind of just immersed me in that, another aha moment of, I really get this. I really understand how to harness the power of these individuals' voices for the greater good, really encapsulate who they are off the field, help them build legacy, help them really carry out their brand in that transition of their career. So that was very, very formative early on in my career.
So take us through that work that you did. That's a great opportunity to have at an early stage in your career. The opportunity to work with a Hall of Famer certainly opens a lot of doors, and you got to see things really from the inside in terms of the operations and what was going on. So what stood out to you the most?
What stood out to me the most is I've had this saying since very early on as I always believe that fame gives you a microphone, but purpose gives you a message. And the individual that I was working for was very much about walking the walk of impact and being able, again, to really utilize that platform and that, the voice that he has and still has. And also from a business sense, I'm very fortunate that early on I realized the business of philanthropy and saw the intricacies of the branding, the sponsorship, and really how to cultivate those relationships for long-term relationships. In essence, there's a huge marketability to aligning, athletes and business and being able to bring it together in a purpose-driven way. Whether it's an event or attaching to a program that has huge impact. That business acumen was the foundation really of my career and how I drive strategy for a lot of my clients, fundraising models, and just a lot of other storytelling components as philanthropy has evolved so much. But like you said, kind of going back behind the screen or behind the curtain and seeing really firsthand how to raise millions of dollars with Fortune 500 companies, the value that they're looking for in what the deliverables are and how to make that a win-win really was, set in stone for me. Things always have to be a win-win and really value those relationships because they carry on throughout, wherever you move or these individuals move at brands or companies. If they know the level of work you do and how much you care to truly make an impact, they're going to continue working with you, in multiple arenas.
I think that's so important because you talk about the impact. That's one of the things we frequently see on the sports side of it, that's an element that gets lost because you talked about walking the walk, right? There's a lot of athletes that kind of talk the talk. They want their name in lights. They want to be they think they want their own foundation, but they really want their name in lights at a gala or a golf outing. And it's not about the impact. It's not even about how much money they raise. It's about how many of their friends they can bring together to entertain. So
Right.
when you started from that impact lens, talk a bit and share how you were able to cultivate that as a focus of the events and the work that your clients are doing.
Yeah, so I approach my clients from a very innovative, bit different than a lot of, other people in the philanthropic and nonprofit space, which I tend to find a bit more traditional and sometimes archaic. I really try to think outside the box when it comes to fundraising and or events that we do or don't do, and try to make everything focused on what the end result is as far as, how much we drive in versus are able to put out, and weigh how much overhead really goes into an event. If a gala is going to cost you, just saying $250,000 to put on, and you're only at the end going to have $50,000, I would rather be a lot more innovative in the approach. And also, I look at the brands of the individuals that I work with because they are brands on and off the field. And what we do in Marcoms, in a marketing and communication strategy, has to be very in sync and lockstep with who their brand is in my agency. And leveling that up. So it's attractive to people that have endorsements with them. It's also attractive to new business relationships, and really find ways to, again, be able to use those relationships outside of traditional events, whether it's social media, whether it's storytelling is a huge component of what I do. It's very transformative to me on the impact side, because I personally feel just through experience that a lot of people don't necessarily connect with statistics. They connect with stories. They connect with who is relatable to them and be like, oh, wow, I see myself in them. Or, oh, I know somebody that is going through or went through X, Y, and Z. And it becomes a very authentic and organic connection. And to me, that's how I try to drive the model for my clients. So I don't necessarily rely on the outings as much of the PR moments as I do when it comes to content. And again, really thinking outside the box on how we can raise money and raise funds around who they are as a brand and their communication strategy versus large overhead activations.
Yeah, and I think that that's such an important distinction. We see so many people, and we've had athletes that we've been involved with that run events, and they'll tell us that they raised $100,000 at the event, and then when you ask a couple of questions about it, it turns out that they spent $90,000 running the event and flying their friends in
Right.
first class and 5-star hotels and limos and dinners and steak and alcohol. Right. So the impact of that event is a $10,000 impact. And like you
Gain.
said, that's not really what I think the sponsors expect. That's not what the donors expect. And so as you start working with a new client, how do you ensure that you're on the same page with them in that impact lens?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really about getting to know each other, them getting to know how I think and how I use marketing strategies to help them on and off the field. Because to me, what they do in their philanthropic and legacy building efforts really becomes part of their communication strategy as a human being, not just in like one silo or vertical. So I work very closely with their teams and their families to really just make sure that when they are able to talk about what drives them in purpose, it's very succinct and it's very aligned. Kind of going back to your question on getting to know them, also with the clientele that we work with, there's also exceptions, and it's kind of not the norm. For a lack of other founders, I might have literally 3 days an entire year with some of my clients, which also helps me become super innovative in how I work with them and how we're able to raise funds. And respectfully so to them and their families during off seasons, it's really important for me to have those conversations and say, do you want these like brick and mortar kind of activations that are going to take more time from your off-season, family or whatever that might be? Or
Right.
should we look at something again a bit more, digitally or brand partnership wise that can fulfill the same revenue streams and potentially have more impact? So it's just being very honest. I'm very transparent with my clients, and I want them to be as well. And I definitely honor, there are some that do want the golf tournaments or the youth camps. It's just how can we make those moments and those experiences more evergreen and not just one-offs? That's super important.
Yeah, I think that's so critical because we hear the stories, and you talked about it. It's the story is what carries the day, right? And having people see that impact. So just saying you ran a celebrity golf event or a gala, sure, that's great, and you can put out some nice graphics or photos showing we raised X number of dollars. But really, the intelligent, right, the more sophisticated donors and sponsors and funders want to understand where's that money going and what are you doing? Because having twice as many kids at your football camp, for example, may not mean that you're doubling your impact unless you can demonstrate what you did at that camp and how that changed the lives of the kids that attended. So give us some examples of the best impact that you've seen through some of the programs that you've worked on.
Let me think about one recently, and it's not necessarily a camp, but again, it's utilizing as many collaborations in the sports world as possible to make the greatest impact. We just completed for the 3rd year a huge mental health campaign with one of our clients and Miami-Dade County. It's the 3rd year we've done it, and it was focused on suicide prevention because September is Suicide Prevention Month, and really the call to action around the national hotline, which is 988. Because of the relationships and because of the county's involvement, we were able to get every sports team in Miami-Dade County to participate, mostly every sports team, and have their real estate being able to market this. And then in conjunction, be able to tap the players to do their own video content. So again, think outside the box on how many different subsets you can get to have this messaging come across to people. We did it in 3 different languages. For instance, it was at the Hard Rock Stadium during opening game, plus on social, in the Marlins, Lone Depot Park, throughout all of September. The Miami Heat do a tremendous amount. So when you put all of those aggregates together, all those partnerships together, in the month of September alone, it reaches, we're doing the impact report right now because it just culminated, but I believe it will have reached between 15 and 20 million people just in the month of September. So it's really about the collaborative nature on the messaging that you really want to try and get to people and have them activate on. So it's, to me, partnerships are huge. And especially when it comes to even individual clients, say one specific player, for instance, it's not, charity meet to me is not just about writing a check anymore. It's really about the strategy, the collaboration. There's a multitude of facets that really go into it to create that big of an impact.
Yeah, I think you hit on some key points, which is people often think about the athletes having a lot of money and writing big checks. And in my experience, number one, a lot of the athletes don't want to write the big checks. But number two, really their impact is exponential, and it's multiplied when they give of themselves and they take the time
100%.
to engage. And as you said, Sharon, social, show up, be there in person and connect, because the impact that it has on youth and really on everybody of engaging with the athlete goes through the roof when you can see that level. And so you talked about partnering with the athlete and helping them understand that they're going to need to give more of that time. That does take more time away from their family, but the engagement elements go through the roof. 15 to 20 million impressions is an enormous number, and really crosses all lines and boundaries of geography and race and socioeconomic status as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well,
Sorry,
I'm saying, like, when you do that, you're crossing the lines of all the socioeconomic status, race and gender and everything else. So how involved do the athletes get in developing that strategy, or is that something that your agency creates a strategy and then presents to the athlete to approve or participate?
Absolutely. We create the whole strategy and make it as seamless as possible for them. So we'll, for an instance, with this specific campaign, there were scripts provided for video, digital content. We edited, we helped them, with all of the recommended copy. So it is very, very seamless. But again, it's about harnessing the power of their platforms and their voices to be able to create that impact. Obviously, any and all of the athletes that were involved in this campaign are also mental health advocates. So we're not pulling people out of left field that don't have an alignment with the cause. It's something that they're very passionate about. So again, it resonates when they're speaking about it and, creating that connection with whoever is seeing it and watching it. And to your point, there's, something that I also share with my clients or just people that I'm talking to, specific to athletes and entertainers. And that's legacy isn't about how many people or how many fans know your name. To me, legacy is really about how many lives are better because you use that name for the greater good. So I really try and have them understand that, again, when they're out in the world, it's, it's really important to continue to be able to share your story, because you don't know how many people relate to it and understand it, and then can have a better outcome from it.
Yeah, and it's so important when you look at that, is getting the athletes to engage and define that legacy. So take us through that part of the process when you first get connected to an athlete, and as you said, you've got to get to know them. But how do you get them to kind of open up and identify what they are truly passionate about and interested in? Because we frequently see athletes kind of, lack of a better term, shoved in a direction because one of their advisors says, "Oh, this is a cause you should be
Right.
involved with, or that you do really well with."
That's
So,
great.
what's your process?
So yeah, it's an exploratory process. First, I'm big on education in the philanthropic space. What they don't know, they don't know, and that's definitely not their fault. But I try to serve as an educator and an advocate, or advisor, I should say, as far as the steps that they might want to take to fulfill their philanthropic goals. And that is different according to different parts of or stages of your career. Especially with NIL now, there's, baby steps to get there. Or if you're just entering a league, or if you're like at the prime of your career, and or you're transitioning or transitioned out of that career. So I'm big on educating to let them know what it really takes to effectively reach the impact that they're looking to. A lot of them generally know what they are most passionate about and where they want to give back. What I generally have to do is rein it in, because a lot of times it's like 10 different things. It's quite expansive, and I have to help them understand how we get from point A to point X, Y, and Z, and that there's milestones and there's a strategic plan, and what we want to create are digestible verticals that you can scale and keep sustainable while you're scaling. So we don't want to jump in and like try to do all of this right off the bat. Let's start with, this pilot or this program. Let's figure out the kinks, what works, what doesn't work, and how we can grow to serve more. That's really important, because a lot of times they're generally so excited and so passionate, which is fantastic. But we have to be realistic on what we can do to make sure that, again, it's sustainable more than anything. And if they don't know, then it's really an evolution of, okay, here's maybe 10 different industries that you want to get your feet wet in. Let's have you work with this organization to see if that's something that really feels good to you.
So, you've gone through this many times with a lot of different athletes. You've seen a lot of challenges. Are there any, um, I'll say, consistent challenges that you see, like patterns that people can learn from in terms of helping get that started?
Yes, and that would be get an expert to help you with this space. While it's well intended to have, family or friends start your foundation or start your philanthropic efforts, there's a tremendous amount of liability in this space that you want to make sure not only are you compliant, but your brand's protected, especially with athletes and entertainers. And it's also going to prove to be a lot more effective with the impact you're trying to make sure that you reach to the communities that you want to serve. I think it's just essential to really have an expert. And when it comes to athletes' teams, you're not going to hire an agent that has no idea how to, develop contracts. You're not going to have an accountant that doesn't know how to add or subtract. this is really a business. And you can not only get into a lot of tricky situations, but again, it's not only wasted time and effort and money if it doesn't transpire the way you want, but more importantly, you made promises to, a community or a cause that is going to be unfulfilled. And I think that is something way more significant than, a loss of a small check.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. You talk about those risks and getting professionals involved. I think athletes frequently don't understand that there's significant legal, financial, and reputational risks that they can face if things aren't done correctly, because it's not going to be Jody's name or Roy's name that's going to be on the ticker of ESPN or Fox Sports. They're not going to be in the newspaper headlines, right? So they need to understand that without any malintent or you know, intent to deceive or anything like that. It's just, if anything doesn't happen correctly, their name is the one that's attached to it. And so frequently we see just these little nuanced misses where it's inadvertent and it's an oversight, but it comes back to reflect negatively on the athlete. And frankly, it's the whole industry of sports philanthropy, because it impedes the trust, because the next time you go with one of your clients, somebody else is going to start questioning you because, well, Jody, we just saw this article in the Boston Globe or on ESPN or somewhere else, that sort of an expose on what's wrong in athlete foundations. And then you have to answer all those questions.
Correct. And I speak to athletes or their mom or their parent or somebody, that's, again, doing their best with what they know on a very regular basis. And I would say 90% of the time they're not in compliance. They didn't know the laws or the ways that it should be facilitated. And there's definitely an opportunity to give a lot more insight and education in this space when it comes to how to protect and how to do your best in in giving back.
Well, Jody, thank you for sharing all of your insight today. I think you've given people a great amount of information and things to think about and understand in terms of how they would look and approach that. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
No, thank you for having me.
We want to change, before we let you go, we want to sort of change for a little fun ending here, and we're going to put you on the spot using our sports philanthropy superpowers and wave our magic wand. If we could appoint you as commissioner of any sport, tell us what sport you would choose.
So it would be a huge job, but I would have to say, from a very heartfelt place, I would choose the NFL. I don't feel, from personal experience, professional experience, and even a recent very tragic loss, that they are doing enough to protect players in CTE. And we're losing a lot of young men. And to me, it's a very personal situation. And I think there needs to be a lot more done in that space, since they're utilizing the players, for their own reasons, that there should definitely be better protection around them and the rest of their lives and health.
And what would you suggest should be changed from the league's perspective?
I think there needs to be a huge onus to the risks and that are very transparent around CTE and injuries, and not hide it like people don't know, but be very honest about it and start really incorporating lead scientists, lead professionals, and putting players first.
Well, I think that's a huge issue, as it should be. It's getting a lot of attention, a lot of resources going that direction, but probably still not enough. It got ignored for a long time. And I think that the outcry is there now, and we're really seeing what a huge impact this has on not only the lives of the athletes themselves, but everybody around them in terms of
Right.
parents, spouses, children, and everything of that nature. So, great idea. Definitely something we're strongly in support of, and we do a lot of work in that brain health and concussion space. So, Jody, thank you again for being with us today. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
And, and for all of our viewers and listeners, we appreciate you taking time to join us on the Sports Philanthropy podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, reminding you to live generously. Thank you.